I want to start by just giving you a little bit of background information about engineering education and our keynote series. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we're very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. We're very happy to see you here today. For those of you who are new to us, Enginerica specializes in academic center management systems for higher education. So you might be familiar with our software applications, including AccuTrack, Academia, or AccuCampus. We started this keynote series for our clients and our contacts who wanted to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month, we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. So we are really excited to have a bunch of speakers lined up for the next few months, and of course, very excited to be welcoming Ms. Mercado today. So always keep an eye out on your email for information about future sessions as well. A quick introduction to myself. I'm Rachel Cook. I'm a client success manager with Enginerica. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years working in community colleges down here in Florida. So like you all, I am very passionate about higher education student success. So I'm very excited to be bringing you this series. I also have with me Nick Armstrong, one of our technical support specialists. He's here as my backup, and he's also here to help with any technical issues that come up on our end, the speaker's end, or yours. And I am very pleased, of course, to be introducing you to this month's speaker. Melissa Mercado is Assistant Vice Provost and Executive Director of the Louisiana State University Center for Academic Success, or CAS, one of the first NCLCA certified national centers of excellence in the country. She has dedicated her over 25-year career in education, which began as a high school teacher, to student academic success. And in more than 20 years at the Louisiana State University CAS, her focus has been on helping students reach their fullest academic potential, regardless of their prior educational background, by helping them foster academic resilience and by teaching them to learn more effectively and think critically through the implementation of metacognitive learning strategies. She is dedicated to innovating practical strategies based on cognitive science research to continue to increase student learning. So these research-based strategies, along with the dedication to inclusion, are the foundation of all the CAS services, such as faculty development, academic coaching, tutoring, and supplemental instruction. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and make Melissa the presenter, and she will be able to begin that presentation for you.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Rachel, and I'm really excited to be here amongst my colleagues today. And if you wouldn't mind typing in your role and your institution, I'd love to see who the audience is and where you guys are from. And so welcome to Extreme Academic Makeover, Maximize Student Learning in Just One Meeting. This is a title that we've used for close to 20 years. If y'all remember the that series on TV, you know, Extreme Makeover, they had the home session, and so this title was popular back then. But it really it speaks to people because they're like, "What? An extreme academic makeover? I want to do that with my students." So so I really do love this topic because extreme academic makeovers are possible. And I want to just introduce our center, the Center for Academic Success. We are proud to be a two-time NCLCA National Center of Excellence. And here's our picture with Sandra McGuire, who hired
Melissa,
me.
I think you're not sharing your screen quite yet.
I'm not? Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Oh, show my screen. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. There you go.
There we are.
And so the Center for Academic Success at LSU is, like I said, a two-time NCLCA National Center of Excellence. And here I am pictured with Dr. McGuire, who hired me her first week on the job here at LSU. And she has been one of my biggest mentors and is one of my greatest friends. And so a lot of you know her and her work as well. And so what I wanted to start off with was a question. So in our business, we see talented students who end up failing out or end up on warning or probation after their first semester, after their first year. And so I'd like for y'all to kind of answer, why do you think that is, or why do you know that is?
seeing some good answers like reluctance to seek help, lack of funding.
Right, lack of metacognitive skills. They think it would be just like high school. They don't know how to do college, financial reasons, not prepared. Not working or studying outside of class time, challenges beyond academics, not prepared, just don't know what to do, anxiety. So all of those things, absolutely. And so we see all of these things in our profession when students come to see us. And so there's also data, national data, to back up what we see in our work. And, you know, so we see that grade inflation is real, that SAT scores have remained pretty steady, but you see that the GPAs, more students are making more A's, even though the SAT scores have remained relatively static. And so we also see in the trends how much time students are spending studying in high school, and that they are making A's despite spending less than 6 hours a week on their homework. And we see that translate into the college environment. So this is the Harry American National Norms for Fall 2019, and it shows that 56% of college freshmen said that they studied less than 6 hours a week. So that translates from that high school environment of the expectation that they, you know, aren't supposed to put in a lot of time. And so then another thing is test preparation in high school. So we ask students these questions, you know, how did your teachers help you prepare for your tests? What did they do during that activity? And what did you do to prepare for the test? And so if y'all want to answer some of the answers y'all hear for that, if you ask students those questions, what do they say when you ask them that? Gave them the questions in advance, gave them a study guide, gave them study sheets, practice tests, study guides. Okay, basically the same thing. So yeah. So when we hear from students, many times they say, you know, the teacher gave us the study guide, you know, before the test, or did a review. During the review, they basically gave us the answers on the test, and I just studied the study guide before the test. And so that's what we hear a lot from students. And we also see some other trends in this generation. We see that they are more successful at memorizing and less so at critical thinking. And that's demonstrated in that test preparation paradigm. And then a lot of students tend to prefer to be visual and kinesthetic in their learning, and less reading and writing, and less, you know, they less like to read and write. They are more used to doing collaborative and active learning in classes, and they're less used to taking copious notes and listening to these long lectures. And we also see that students are tend to be more confident, especially in the beginning when they get to college. And this causes issues and makes them less able to cope with failure. So they fail one test, or they, you know, don't do well on one thing, and then that crushes them. And so their ability to cope with failure is a lot less than we've seen in the past. And so what challenges does this programming that we have just discussed create in the university or classroom environment? What challenges do we see? Teaching to the old student, not necessarily the new, right? Yeah, and faculty, on the faculty side, yes. Faculty are teaching the way that they were taught. One size does not fit all. Students don't know how to read or analyze well. Yes, yeah, all of those things. They're expecting the same, to use those same behaviors in the new environment. They're not reading the text, which is much more required in college. They're not fully prepared to learn. They're not comfortable taking notes. There's a lack of motivation. Yes, all of those things. And so some of the things that we've teased out over the years, and I'm sure many of you in your work have, is that the old requirements are that they're tested on 1 or 2 chapters, while in the new environment, they're tested maybe on 3 or more chapters. So the volume of information is much more. In high school or prior environments, they're tested at the memorization level. Well, in college, they're not. They're tested at levels that require higher order thinking and critical thinking. And then the old requirements, most of their work is completed in class, and their teachers build in all of these activities needed to learn the material, where in college there's a much bigger expectation to spend more time outside of class. And then in high school, they're tested very frequently, every 1 to 2 weeks, whereas in college, sometimes they're tested, every 3 to 4 weeks or even more. And so the time in between tests is much greater. And so these are new requirements that students aren't told about. Nobody has told them what the differences are going to be and how do I, deal with those differences. And these affect their academic performance. And so what we see in the retention data nationally is that graduation is tied heavily to GPA. So the higher your GPA, the more likely you are to graduate. And we've seen the same thing here at LSU in studies that we've done with our students. So we have seen that GPA differential, which is the difference between a student's ending high school GPA versus their ending first-year college GPA, the higher the GPA differential between those two, the more likely a student is to leave the institution. And so GPA and academic performance is tied very heavily to a student's success and retention. And so in the Center for Academic Success, over many years, we have seen the same thing happen over and over. It's like a broken record. We see this group of students who's doing great. They don't need any help. They got this down. They got these skills, in their high school, and they don't need any help. Then we have the students who are gone no matter what we do. They're leaving for whatever reason, and those are students that we may not be able to help. And then we have the students who are doing okay. They're doing well. They can interact with some of the resources. They can kind of tell when they're not doing well, and maybe get the resources they need. But then we have this other group of perfectly capable, motivated students that take on this mentality of a failing student their first few semesters in college. And we call this phantom failure phenomenon. And this is where students have failed their first few tests or failed their first few classes, and they take on this mentality of, I'm not cut out for college. I can't tell you how many valedictorians I've had in my office saying, I'm not meant to be at LSU. And that doesn't add up. So it's really a phantom failure, that they are not doing well. It's not because they're not intelligent. It's because they don't have the right strategies. And so one of the things our center does, and that we track, is our ability to help reduce this GPA differential, the difference between that end of high school and end of first year GPA. And so our information has showed that students who participate in 3 or more CAS services showed greater GPA gains than other students. And so I want to do an activity with you guys. And if you've done this before, don't give away the secret. So this is a set of numbers. And in this set of numbers, I'm going to have you do an activity. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. And what I want you to do is to get as many numbers in numerical order as you can within that 15 seconds. So you're going to start with 1, then find the 2, then find the 3, and so on and so forth. So ready? Go. Stop. Okay, so how many numbers did you get? Okay, okay. As some people may have done this before. I see those high numbers. Okay, great. Okay, so now this time we're going to do this again, but this time I am going to provide a quadrant, some lines to give us a quadrant. And so if you'll notice, the first number is in the upper right-hand corner, and then the numbers go clockwise. So the number 1 is in the upper right-hand corner, and then below that in the second quadrant is the 2, and then the 3 is on in the next quadrant, and the 4, and so on. So this time I'm going to give you 15 seconds, and I want you to see how many numbers you're able to get. Ready? Go. And stop. And so how many of you did better? Or how many of you did more than doubled your score? Doubled the original. I doubled it. Okay, 22 better. Okay, better. Okay, yes, double, close to double. Okay, good. Good. So yeah, so what was the difference between those two attempts? Why were you able to do better this second attempt? Oh, somebody did worse. Oh no. Okay, you knew the structure, you saw the pattern, somebody gave you the pattern, made it faster, you had a plan, you had a strategy. So absolutely. So when we have the right strategies, when we know the context, we are able to really boost our performance by a ton. And so our center has, uses this exercise with students to show them the dramatic difference that a few small strategies can actually make in their learning and studying. And so we have over the years created a bunch of different types of intervention formats where we use these strategies. And so this session is entitled Maximize Student Learning in Just One Session. And so these are our one session formats that we use these strategies in. So we have our academic coaching, which is one-on-one, 1 hour sessions with students. And these are for students who really need it and want to create an appointment to meet with one of our academic coaches. We have small group strategy sessions of 5 to 7 students who we, work with in a very personalized group to work with them on some of these strategies. We have our impact program, which is a very large group session, several hundred students at a time, but usually in a semester, our impact program, we see 700 to 1,000 students in that program. We do summer boot camps with our colleges. So we do our presentation of our strategies in those boot camps. And then we also do classroom presentations of several hundred students or more. So these are our one session intervention formats where we have utilized these strategies and seen students make a big change in their learning. And so these are just some results from academic coaching. These are test scores, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but Jasmine is actually the student that I worked with. She was a freshman student in a history course, and she had made a 44 on that first test. And then she came in to talk to me. And we talked about some of our regular strategies that we do at the CAS, but we also talked about a strategy called concept mapping. And she was able to double her test scores for the rest of the semester. And then I'll go down to Dana. Dana was a first-year physics student, and she made an 80 on the first test, and which was not bad. And then she made a 54 on the second test. And when she made that 54, she said, you know what? If I'm making 54s on these physics tests, I don't really think I should be a physics student. And so she came in to see us. She was having trouble with her homework. We gave her, our regular strategies, but also a few on how to help her get the most out of her homework, and she was able to make A's on all of her, the rest of her tests and on her final. Our impact program. So I'm just showing you some of the data that we have from these one session interventions to show you their efficacy. So impact is a required 1.5 hour workshop for first year students who are below a 2.0 their first semester. And so this program has shown an average of a 0.59 increase in their overall GPA from fall to spring, and an average of a 20% average higher retention rate for the students who are required that attend versus the students who are not. And so this is some of that data. We have 10 years of data on that. And you see the students who attended impact on the right versus the students who did not attend. And so the students who attend definitely do a lot better that spring semester than the students who did not attend. It also improves students' attitudes and behaviors. So the 5-year average results, students' academic self-confidence increased, their academic behaviors and attitudes improved, they reported improved grades, increased completion of assignments, improved understanding of course content, showed a decrease in frustration, showed a reduction in test anxiety. So a lot of things were addressed with this workshop. And so this is just to show you in a visual form. All the purples are the students who attended impact in their GPA versus the students who did not. And so you see the purple is higher every single time over all of those years. So the students who attend do much better. And then this is to show a different view. So if you look on the right, the 2.19 is the GPA that the first gen students were able to pull themselves up to after attending just the workshop. And so these were people who only attended the workshop. The GPAs on the left-hand side are what we started requiring in 2020 was that students do an additional intervention after the impact program. And so we see that students who did an additional intervention increase their GPAs even more. And so signature series is our workshops that we do on time management and other things. Learning Journey is a Moodle course that we've developed on learning strategies that all students have access to. We have a math strategies workshop, and then we have coaching. And you see that students who attended our one-on-one coaching, in addition to the impact workshop, brought their GPAs up to a 3.4, their semester GPA. So the coaching really was, our most powerful intervention. That's that one-on-one. And so just to kind of go through a little bit what students say, this is, and you probably have heard this many times, I was sure there was no hope for me and maybe I just wasn't cut out for college. I can now proudly say that after beginning college with a 2.79 GPA, I have just recently finished midterms week with a solid 4.0. And so we require the students on warning and probation to come to the workshop, but we open it to all first-year students and students outside of that if they want to come. But we really push all first-year students to attend. And you see, the students' GPA affects so many things. It affects whether or not they're able to keep their scholarship and other things.
We've had a couple questions come in that I want to just share. So Regina asked, what all is covered in an impact session?
Okay, we're getting to that.
Oh, okay. And Wendy wants to know if you offer writing workshops as well.
We do not. We do not. But we have a great writing center on our campus, but it is not under our center. So, but they are fabulous. Okay, so and we also college boot camps. We work with our different colleges on campus to be part of their boot camps that happen for first-year students before school starts. And so this is we participate in these. This is an article by our faculty members who put on BIOS, which is our biology intensive orientation program for biology majors. And so obviously, in that program, we're only one part of that, but the overall program has very dramatic results for students. And so we participate in those and provide strategies during those boot camps. And then classroom presentations. We do 1-hour presentations after the first test, and participants average 1 letter grade higher in the course in general chemistry. And so these are some articles that have been written about these workshops with in these classes. And this is just an example of the performance of a general chemistry class based on 1 learning strategy session. So, the students who attended the workshop in the class earned a B, and the students who did not attend earned a D in the overall course. Okay, and so how do we get these results? So we're getting to that part. The foundation of all of these interventions is metacognition. And what is metacognition? I'm sure most of you know what that is. But just in case there's 1 or 2 folks who don't know, metacognition is thinking about thinking, and it is being consciously aware of yourself as a problem solver. And my friend, Dr. McGuire, says it's like having a brain outside your brain looking at what your brain is doing. And so that's a good analogy for students. And so it's also the ability to monitor, plan, and control your mental processing. Am I using processes that are effective? Am I spending enough time on what I'm doing? It's also about accurately judging your level of learning. Knowing what you know versus what you don't know, so that you can focus your time on the things that you don't know. And so what's the difference between metacognition and study skills? So this is something I'd like you to answer in the chat. What is the difference between metacognition and study skills? Because many people look at learning centers as the study skills people.
While people are responding to that, we had another question come in from Wendy, and she wants to know how do you get faculty to make time for classroom presentations?
Well, we select specific faculty and work with them, and ask them if they'd be willing to do that. So, we start small, and, usually we used to do what we call the absent professor program, but we found that was not very effective if the faculty member was not there and didn't buy into it. So we work with faculty and make sure that they're there and that they are letting the students know that these are important strategies that I endorse. So we just pick one at a time, and then usually the more faculty that see that it works, the more faculty that will allow the time. Okay, so I see study skills is antiquated language, mental process and perspective versus habits and strategies. Skills are only effective as your reflection. Okay, the difference in the ability to train your brain. Metacognition is the awareness of how you study. Okay, I see study skills as actions. Okay, metacognition involves knowing which skill to use when. Okay, Megan, I love that. Okay. And so metacognition versus study skills, what's the difference? And metacognition is about self-efficacy and empowerment, teaching students how to fish and how to learn on their own. And it's about which skill is best to apply to a particular task. You can teach study skills all day long, but if you don't use them in the right context, they're not going to help you. So metacognition is really about that discernment of what do I need to be doing? How do I need to be doing? And if things are not working, what can I do to change things to make it better? So metacognition is so much more powerful and deep than study skills. And so in order to kind of frame our understanding of metacognition and the work that we do with students, we have developed the 5 pillars of metacognition. And this really helps us frame our conversation with students around these very important principles of learning and really for us to get that message across. And these are the pillars that are in all of our interventions and workshops, and it's the foundation of our whole learning center, of all the work that we do here. And so learners are unique. Learning is a process. Learning can be enhanced. Emotions affect learning, and learning requires effort. Those are the things that we have learned. And so emotions affect learning is huge. And so we see students, that phantom failure phenomenon is really learned helplessness. You know, they're trying their hearts out to do well in college. Many of them are studying and studying, but they're not getting any results. And so, you know, based on this experience of yes,
I wasn't able to hear you. Your audio cut out
okay.
for the last 30 seconds or so.
Oh, wow. Okay. Don't know what happened there. Okay. So, sorry, let me go back then. So emotions affect learning is a very big part of learning. And we talked about that phantom failure phenomenon. And it really is about learned helplessness. And so students who are experiencing that are, you know, used to being successful, and then they get to college and they start to experience failures, and they can't make that connect of, why am I not doing well? I used to be doing so well. And so they get to a point, you know, they keep using these same strategies and they're really studying very hard, but they're not getting the results. And so it really destroys their motivation to attempt a task, and they just want to give up. They don't want to do, you know, school anymore because they just don't feel like they're good at it. And we know that that's not true, but what that causes, and that phantom failure phenomenon causes, is this bad to worse spiral, I call it, where they fail tests, they lose their confidence, then they change majors to a different major that they, you know, didn't want in the first place. They lose their scholarships. Because they lose their scholarships, they've got to work more hours. It causes problems. The parents are, you know, upset that they're not making good grades. And so it just causes a lot of problems. And so what we know about learning has changed in the past 20 years. And a lot of that has to do with the theory of neuroplasticity. And so it used to be thought that the brain was static and that people were born with a certain amount of intelligence. But the theory of neuroplasticity basically blew all that up, that the brain actually can change by what we do. And Carol Dweck has based her work on that because our brain can change, there are things that we have control over that we can do to change it. And so when we're talking to students about, you know, their past failures, we really talk a lot about growth mindset and how, you know, just because you're not doing well now doesn't mean that you can't do well in the future if we change some things. And so, you know, a lot of students that we see have that fixed mindset, and we really work with them on switching to this growth mindset of, you know, I may not be good at math today, but if I, you know, learn how to approach my homework and I put in the work, I can be good at math. And so this really boosts students' confidence because they finally realize it's not me, it's not my intelligence, it is something that I can do to change that, and something that I'm doing that I can stop doing or I can start doing. So mindset is very important to our work. And then learners are unique is very important, especially in this age of inclusion. We need to understand that students all learn very differently. They have different personalities. They prefer different learning modalities. They just have different behaviors, and they, you know, have different thinking tendencies. And those generational norms that we talked about earlier, that is a difference that students have. And so we really want to focus on different things to help students become more self-aware. So on our website, in a lot of our things, we do these inventories with students to kind of help them become more self-aware. And so, you know, working with students on what you think their challenges is and giving them inventories to kind of help them reflect on, okay, this is where I am, and this is what I need to do to change that or move forward or get better in that area. And so we focus on self-awareness. And then one of the biggest things is that learning is a process. We must help students understand the processes of learning and thinking to help them become better learners. And so one of the things that I like to focus on with students is helping them understand how their brain works, because this really answers a lot of those questions about why they're not doing well in the college environment. So we take information in through our sensory memory, sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And if we do something with that, if we focus on it, we can move that information to short-term and working memory. But the problem with short-term and working memory is that it is very small and it cannot hold a lot of information. So our students are used to coming from high school. They lived in short-term and working memory. They crammed everything into short-term and working memory before the test, and they regurgitated it on the test. And so when they get to college, their tests are so far apart and there's so much information, they cannot rely on short-term and working memory anymore. They cannot rely on cramming. And so this really helps demonstrate to them why that's not possible anymore. So we really, focus with them on learning the information. And learning it to move it to long-term memory, which long-term memory is, virtually unlimited. That's where we want to live. And so my colleague Pam, she says short-term and working memory is like renting the information, but long-term memory is where you own the information. We want the students to own that information,
Really
so that
like
they can call it at a later time.
We had a question come in that I just want to bring up before we go much further. So apologize if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but Temitope asks, although sometimes the phantom failure or learned helplessness phenomenon are based on false beliefs, for some learners, there are actual challenges based on systemic issues such as prejudice, instructors with deficit approaches to instruction. And she wants to know how you coach students. They want to know how you coach students through systemic barriers.
Yeah, well, and it depends on each student situation. And so we really, focus on with students on, what can they control? What are they capable of controlling in that equation, and what can they do? I mean, they can only do their part. And so we really try to empower them to take control of whatever situation that they're experiencing based on whatever those circumstances are. And I can talk with them more about that after as well. I'll be happy to stay on. Okay, so cognitive load is the amount of information currently in a student's active working memory. And so the problem with cognitive load is that it is very small. And so how many of you have ever walked into another room and forgotten why you walked in there? What did you walk in there for? That is cognitive load. That's too much information in that short-term and working memory. And so the analogy I like to use is like, we've got so much in that short-term and working memory, things just fall out. Of course, that's not exactly what happens, but that's an analogy, to show students that there's only so much that can go in there. And once so much is in there, no more can really go in. And so this is a little cartoon I like to show. This is how a lot of students feel when they walk into some of these classes. That they feel just overwhelmed by the amount and volume of information. And so one of the things that we work with students on is really, breaking things down into smaller pieces to help with that cognitive load. And this is the forgetting curve. So we really talk to students about how important repetition is and how important space practice is. And so if you look at the forgetting curve, if you study the information once, you see that it's very close to the forgetting curve. If you do it the next week, the second repetition is further away from the forgetting curve, and the third repetition in the third week is even further away, and the fourth repetition in the fourth week is even further away. And so that's how we build that long-term memory, is by that repetition and that space practice. And so the study cycle is, some of you may have heard of it, is the strategy that we have developed based on the cognitive science research, and it really addresses all the cognitive science research principles that we talk about. And this process embodies almost all of those in one process. And so this is, I'm going to show you our video, and this is on our website, and you're welcome to use it if you would like.
Want to become a more efficient learner? Put the study cycle to work for you. This 5-step proven approach helps students create a process for learning that can be easily applied to their coursework. The 5 steps are preview, attend, review, study, and check. Step 1, previewing. When you preview before class, you can understand the big picture. Skim through your text, PowerPoint, or videos. Note any bold and italicized print. headings, formulas, graphs, and other images. When you have the big picture, what you experience in class makes more sense. Step 2, attend. Go to class. It seems obvious, but attending class is an essential step. Being engaged by taking notes and asking questions will help you feel more connected and get more out of class time. Step 3, review. As soon as possible after class, take 8 to 10 minutes to review your notes, fill in the gaps, note any questions you still have, and highlight important points. These first 3 steps, preview, attend, review, will help you get the most out of class.
Reviewing after class helps me reinforce new concepts, which really makes me feel more confident.
Step 4, study. Dedicate study time between each class. Use this time to engage with and process the material through active learning strategies like summarizing, concept mapping, practicing problems, or group study. Ask critical thinking questions like why, how, and what if. Remember to study in small increments using focused study sessions. Step 5, check. Check your learning by teaching the material, quizzing yourself, or working problems without using notes. Periodic checking will help you refocus and adjust your learning or methods if needed.
Checking my learning by testing myself has made a huge difference. Now I can see what material I need to work on and focus on that before the test.
The study cycle is designed to work the way your brain learns best. This method helps you move information from short-term to long-term memory and reach higher levels of learning. Start using the study cycle today, and you'll be a more confident learner in no time. Want to become a more efficient learner? Put the study cycle to work for you.
Okay, so the study cycle, just kind of a recap. So some of the things that are that we see students, don't really know are, one, the preview part and the review part. Those are things that are actually usually built into a high school class. So the teacher puts that in the class already. So students aren't used to doing this on their own. And so previewing really helps with that, giving students that big picture and helping maximize that working in short-term memory, because what it does is provides them the big picture that they're able to, their brain is able to process the information more quickly when they get to class because they saw it, before, and they're able to really comprehend a lot better when they get to class. And then reviewing after class, just reviewing within 24 hours, filling in the gaps, annotating, kind of highlighting things that are important, putting in, where do I have questions about this kind of stuff. And then the focused study session is a new idea for a lot of students. Most students are like, I'm going to go to the library, I'm going to stay for 4 hours, and that's, my study time. We know that the brain does not like to learn in long marathon sessions. It likes to study, or it likes to learn in short, intense spurts. And so the focused study session is a revelation for a lot of students. So we want students to plan, set a specific goal, study, set a goal about what they're going to do in that 30-50 minutes. When they are doing that studying, we want that to be active, something that's active learning in that study session. And we want them to be using those critical thinking questions while they are doing that work. And then to take a break for 5 to 10 minutes to kind of, give your brain a little break, and then summarize, come back, summarize and wrap up, and then decide, do I need to continue studying? Am I energized? Do I need to go on, or do I need to take a longer break? Am I really exhausted and nothing's getting through? So, or do I need to just switch it up to give my brain, something different to do, some novelty, and change it up or switch tasks? So really making that decision about, what is best for me, what are my best next steps? And then the final thing that is new to a lot of students also is the check part. And this is where that metacognition comes in. It's, one of the things that we suggest to students is, teaching the material to someone is one of the best ways to learn that material. And so, if I can teach it to somebody else, then I know it very well. And then the other part of the check is constantly kind of checking your study methods. If I'd made a deal on the last test, what are the methods that I use? Those obviously did not work very well. So what could I change or do differently next time? Or what methods could I use that would help me do better? And so that's that check piece. And so learning can be enhanced. And I always say not all learning strategies are created equal. And so when we ask students what their primary study methods are, what do they usually tell you? Or what do you think? And I see a question from somebody saying that these seem like principles that are discussed with the student over time. And actually, we do them in one session. We talk to students about these strategies in one session, in a workshop, in a one-to-one format. We do, for our one-to-ones, we do a intake before they come in. So we give them an intake, they fill it out so that we kind of have some background information on them. But these are basically the principles that we do cover in all of those formats. Okay, so rereading notes, rereading in flashcards, reviewing notes, rereading, Quizlet, yes. Read the material, study more, but get bored and meaningless, read more. Y'all are on par there. That is what they say. They reread, they highlight, and they do flashcards. Those are their study methods. And so that's one of the reasons we talk to them about blooms, because we really want them to visualize and see what's going on. Why are they not doing well? Why are these strategies not working for them? And so we talk to students about Bloom's taxonomy, or the levels of learning. And we ask students, you know, where did you perform at most during high school? And I'm sure you know already, they tell us mostly they performed at understanding and remembering, which is memorization. And so we talk to them about, you know, memorization is good. I mean, that's the foundation. But when we get to college, our professors expect us to do something with that information. They expect us to apply, analyze, and evaluate information. And so I give them an example of, say, a doctor. You know, I don't want a doctor that just knows the parts of the body. I want a doctor that knows that if I do this in this system over here, then this is going to happen in this system over there. So we want people to see patterns and connections and understand why and how things happen. And so those require much higher level questions. And those are not questions that can just be answered by facts. They actually require a deeper thinking. And so memorization, reading, highlighting, flashcards, those are great strategies for memorizing, but we need different strategies and new strategies in order to reach these higher levels. And then the other thing we talk to them about is the types of learning that they do. A lot of their learning is, and especially when they get to college and some of these large intro classes, is very passive learning. It's a lecture, it's reading, it's, you know, looking at audiovisual materials. And so students aren't necessarily very good at knowing how to do active learning on their own. They reread, they highlight, and they make flashcards, but we really encourage them to do stuff while they're learning. So going to demonstrations, participating in a discussion group or supplemental instruction, practicing by doing, which is working problems, doing case studies, teaching others is one of the best ways to learn. So we really encourage them during that study time, during those focused study sessions, to do things actively with the material. Okay, so critical thinking is active learning that requires more than memorizing. And so we want to encourage students to question, to think through, reason through information, and to check their learning and check their thinking. And so, you know, the action, when we want students to question, we want them to stop, to ask questions, constantly ask why, how, what if this happens, then what happens? We want them to think through things. And so manipulating knowledge, doing things actively with the material helps us manipulate that knowledge and really get a deeper understanding of that knowledge. And we recommend concept mapping, problem solving, synthesizing materials, discussions, study groups, research, case studies. And then we want them to check their thinking and judge their learning. We want them to teach the material, create testing scenarios, ask questions, look for exemplar models to compare to. So those are the processes that are involved in critical thinking, and we want students to understand those. And so active strategies, we talk to students about things like active reading. One of my favorites is concept mapping. So concept mapping is very powerful. I talked to the 1L students at our law center, the first year law students, and a lot of them have trouble with the heavy read write load. And so concept mapping is a tool that I teach them to help them visualize some of that information. And the thing I really like about concept maps is that it puts information side by side. It's very hard for our brain to process information, from page 1 of our notes to page 50 of our notes. But if that information is side by side, we can make comparisons. Oh, look, that and that look a lot alike, or that and that look completely different, or look, they keep talking about the same thing over and over again. That's a pattern, that's a theme. Let me pull that out. So concept maps are really very powerful, and there's lots of research in all disciplines that prove that they are very effective. And so just to kind of give an example of, what help a concept map can give, if you look at the right, experts, when we know an expert, somebody who's been talking about the same topic for years and years and years, like our professors, they have this structure in their brain. Anytime they get new information about their topic or their area of specialty, their brain just files that information away right, in the right category in the right spot. But when you have students who are new to a discipline or a topic, their information just takes in things at random, and they can't file them fast. They can't, take it in faster. And so that's where concept maps help. When you get that big picture and you get those categories and structure, it really helps you provide your brain that structure it needs in order to process that information faster. And so there's all kinds of concept maps. You can Google that and find a ton for every type of discipline. And then one of the things that we do as far as checking our learning is that post-test review. What caused me not to get 100? Was it my test taking strategies, or was it my lack of information? Was it the way that I studied? What was it that caused me not to get 100? And so one of the other challenges that we see is the problem-based course approach. How do students answer when we ask them, when you get stuck on a problem, what do you do? What do most students say? They take a nap. I love it. They look at an example. Okay, that's what we see. So we have students in these math classes, they get stuck on the problem and they do it on the computer and it says, show me the example. And so when they get stuck, they say, show me the example. And so that really, when we talk to them about, okay, well, so you're going through your homework, every time you get stuck on a problem, you say, show me an example, they get the information from the textbook or the back of the textbook or the show me the example. And so when they're doing that, they do it for the next problem and the next problem and the next problem. And by the end of the homework, they've completed all the homework, but for most of them, they have had show me the example. And so it wasn't really them that was completing the homework. I say, well, who was completing the homework if you did that? And they're like, oh, it wasn't me, it was the book or it was the computer. And so we really focus with them on how they approach their homework. We want them to focus on the why and the how in class. We want them to review the concepts before they jump into the homework. Then we want them to rework the problems that they already have done or the example problems. And then when they work the problems, we want them to work them like they're working a test and not look back at their resources and just mark which ones they missed. And so by the end, what they have is a list of all the ones that they missed And a lot of times there's a pattern to the ones that they miss, and they can say, oh, I kept missing the same thing over and over again. Let me focus my time and energy on studying that one thing. And so, and then that helps them, like if they go to tutoring, then they already kind of have a log of, okay, this is the area that I'm really get stuck on. This is the area that I'm going to ask the tutor about. So we really want them to focus on good strategies. And we give them good problem solving strategies to help them, you know, step by step, make sure that they are using good problem solving strategies. And then I know we're running out of time. So the last part is learning requires planning and effort. And so time management is a very big part of a student's success. And students who have good time management tend to be students who do well. And so we ask students, you know, for which would you prepare more, a test on Friday or having to teach the material to a class on Friday, and why? And you know, most of them say, well, of course, I would prepare more to teach the class because I really would need to know it. Well, you really need to know it for the test too. So you really need to put that amount of effort into your studying and learning. And so we use time tools to really help students understand the time commitment that they need for their classes. So we provide semester calendars every semester for all students. We have those posted on our website and in our offices, and we encourage them to put all their major due dates and exams and things on this semester calendar. And so we want them to be thinking of the study cycle and how to implement that study cycle into their daily routine. So, you know, we encourage students on a Sunday night to create a master to-do list, take all their syllabi and put all the things that they're going to need to get done that week on their master to-do list. And these little items, these little check boxes, all make great focus study session topics for focus study sessions. And so then we have a weekly planner that we encourage them to use to put all their permanent stuff. And then we want them to find those white spaces. And these white spaces are where we ask them to kind of pepper these focus study sessions throughout their week in order to get their study time in. And so the 5 pillars of metacognition, you know, we definitely tailor it to whatever situation we are in. I mean, we don't go into depth on every single topic that we talked about here, but we put them together in a way that makes sense for, you know, the group that we are presenting with. And these pillars really help students understand the why and the how. It helps them understand why they're struggling and how they can improve. It helps them learn why they learn the way they do, why all study methods are not created equally effective, why their effort is just as important or more important than intelligence, and then why faculty are asking questions why the way they do. And so a lot of times students think it's a trick question from a faculty member. No, it's not a trick question. It is that they're asking it at a higher level than what you prepared for. And so these 5 pillars really help students understand these principles. And so I will end the presentation, and if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to take those.
We did have a few come in that I flagged so that I would be able to find them later, because we've had like a lot of responses come in, obviously, to your great discussion questions. Edward wants to know, what role does the limbic system play in learning, in your opinion?
The emotions. It's that, I think, is a big part of what we know, is that, you know, when students emotions are, you know, raw, a lot of times that blocks our memory recall. And so we definitely work with students on, you know, taming that anxiety and all of those things that contribute to that.
Great. And Wendy wants to know, she loves the visuals of the presentation, and she wants to know if the attendees can have access to the PowerPoint slides later.
Absolutely, yeah. And what we ask is that people just credit, you know, the center when they use the visuals or the information in it. And hi, Ann, my friend Ann from Arkansas. I see her on here.
And Michael asked a follow-up question regarding how you mentioned that all of these topics are discussed in the meeting, in one meeting with the students. And he just kind of wants to clarify, is one session producing these changes, or is this just kind of what we cover in one session?
Well, I mean, we have snapshots of data that show that, that the effectiveness of these one sessions. And so yeah, like for impact, I mean, that's the data. We do one session with these students and we cover a lot of these topics, and that produces those results. Our one-on-one, I mean, we can't say that it does it every single time, but we do have evidence that it benefits students from that one session. Yes. And I'm happy to talk with him offline if he wants to chat more about it and get a little bit more in detail.
Okay, and as you mentioned, you're going to be sharing the slides, but Kendra would like to know if you can go back to the first concept map slide.
Sure. Actually, if I can do this, I could get there faster. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. While that's on the screen, we've gotten a lot of thank yous, a lot of compliments. Great. Kendra wants to know, my center is for students with learning differences and neurodiversity. Do you have any suggestions for implementing these strategies for students with additional needs?
Yeah, well, I mean, and so the great thing about when we're working with students with different needs is a lot of times the stuff that works for them works for all students. And so a lot of this stuff really, I mean, it helps all students no matter what. But one of the things that I really like to talk about with students, especially we see a lot of students with ADD and ADHD, is really those focused study sessions and how we utilize those with students. And so, I have students with ADD or ADHD, and so those focused study sessions, we want to tailor those to those particular students' needs. So a student may not be able to go 30 to 50 minutes, and that's okay. I mean, if I'm reading a textbook and it is boring as anything, I may only be able to read 15 minutes at a time and stay focused. So we want to be able to tailor those strategies to the student and their specific situation. These are not prescriptions by any means. They are,
right.
We tweak them to fit with whatever the student's needs are.
Okay. And Yvonne wants to know if they can get a copy of the initial intake form.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Any documents, just to let everyone know, any documents that we share, I will send that to everybody after the session. So probably tomorrow or early next week. We've had a few more.
I wanted to mention that on our website, lsu.edu/CAS, we have an area of our website called Learning Tips and Tools, and you'll be able to find a lot of this stuff on there.
Oh, good.
Handouts, videos, all of that, and that's open, public access for people who want to use that information.
Okay, awesome. Good to know. Zariah wants to know, what does the staffing look like at CAS to support these intervention programs?
We run very lean and we call it academic engagement and achievement is our area that does this work with students. And so we have 4 full-time staff who do this. And, I was talking to somebody the other day about, just capacity, and we've never had enough people to meet the demand of 30,000 students. And so we've been very creative in the way that we serve students, in that we have tiered levels of support. So we have one-to-one, but those are saved for the students who really desperately need that. We've got small group sessions, we have large sessions, we have impact is a huge session. So we have layers of services that help us deal with capacity and really getting this information to students when and where they need it.
Awesome. And Wendy would like to know, do your tutors work with students this way, or do students meet with faculty or staff for these interventions?
Okay, so like I said, these 5 pillars are the foundation of our entire learning center. So when we train our tutors, this is part of their training. When we train our SI leaders, this is all part of their training. And the tutors, when and where needed, can provide a strategy here or there. The SI leaders incorporate a lot of these strategies into their sessions, because that is really what SI is about. It is having, the student doing these collaborative and active learning things, but also focusing on the strategy on how to approach the material for that class. And so those are interwoven into our SI sessions.
Okay. Barbara would like to know, I am working with medical students who did well in college and now are struggling with enormous workloads and time management issues. Do you have any advice regarding medical education?
Well, the strategies work for medical education as well. My niece was a PA in PA school, and she was struggling because of the volume of information. And we have worked with our vet school. We've worked with our dental school students. Like I said, the law school. The strategies also work in those environments of, breaking things into small bits and studying over time, and those, the spaced practice and, not cramming. They're basic principles that really can work with undergraduate and professional school students.
Mm-hmm. And Sigmund just kind of wants to clarify, do you use peers for tutors or learning coaches?
All of our tutors and SI leaders are peers.
Okay. And Zariah wants to know if your training is CRLA. I assuming she means CRLA certified.
It is CRLA certified, and our SI program is also certified.
Okay. And that is all of the questions that we have had come in. So great questions, everyone. Thank you so much. I am going to just bring up our final slide on our end really quick so you know what to expect from here on out. Let me just get my screen shared.
Well, thank all of you. I always love talking with my colleagues and practitioners and people who work with students every day. It's our passion, and we always want to learn new things and different things in order to help them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if you need any additional help or have any other questions, you can contact me at rachelc@engineerica.com. Again, we will be sending out this recording as well as the slides and any other documents that Ms. Mercado would like to share, and you can expect that in your inbox soon. But thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.